1.
Thursday night edition of the Anaheim Calling Podcast. We are back after a prolonged hiatus to not break down a Ducks playoff game, because we all know that's not a thing right now. But we are here to break down the Game 3 of the San Diego Gulls series against the Bakersfield Condors.
Wait. We're not here to break down Tottenham Hotspur making it to the Champions League final. We're not here for that?
I don't think we even made it 1 minute into this podcast without you mentioning soccer.
Glory, Tottenham Hotspur. Sorry for anyone out there who does not like Spurs. You're going to have to deal with me being very, very happy right now because my team, my lowly Spurs, have made it to the Champions League final. Well, glory, Tottenham Hotspur.
I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
Even though I don't care, I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
So there you go.
I appreciate that.
As you sip on your Arnold Palmer.
Yeah, my Arnold Palmer. That Felix had to ask me what an Arnold Palmer is before we started talking here.
All right. So back to the order of business here. So Game 3 last night in the Gulls' second-round matchup against the Bakersfield Condors. A first-round matchup that we may have started a little too late in terms of the recaps because the first two games, Gulls wins, both very exciting matchups.
Yes.
Last night's game was certainly exciting, but did not really go in the Gulls' favor.
Yep.
The Gulls dropping this one 7-6, an overtime game that had quite a few lead changes, swings in momentum, whatever you want to call it, injuries. It had everything, this game did. And so we're going to get into all of that. There's been a lot of requests for us to do a Gulls game, and we figured why not dust off our mics and get back into the game here a little bit since it's been so long. So Jake, are you feeling up to the challenge?
I think I'm ready. I think I've had enough time, enough of a break.
Do you feel spry? Do you feel rested?
I'm ready.
Do you feel like this is postseason form right now?
I'm ready. I mean, we're like the kids going into a playoff run where the the Black Aces, and here we are. We're ready.
Absolutely.
Legs are fresh, ready to get going.
So before we get into the game, we did want to talk a little bit about some of the ongoing news around hockey, around the NHL, particularly as it pertains to the Ducks coaching search, which, believe it or not, the Ducks are still without a head coach as we are now almost halfway through the month of May, which should tip you off a little bit as to what league their candidates are coaching in.
Yep, and I think... and you look at all the other teams that really had vacancies, pretty much a lot of them have been filled already.
Yes, so infamously, I'm going to call it, the Philadelphia Flyers, after making what I thought was a decent hire, bringing on Ale Vigneault. Vigneault derided a little bit for his tenure with the Rangers, albeit a pretty successful tenure. I mean, they did go to the Stanley Cup final. I thought he was very good with Vancouver. Those Canucks teams were some of the better teams that we've seen, in the Cap era. So it should be an interesting, I guess, tenure he'll have with the Flyers. There is a lot of talent on that roster, but
it's a weird team.
So getting back to what I was going to say is yesterday he brings on two assistant coaches who I would not have at the top of any list, whether it's assistant or head coach. Michel Therrien makes a return to the NHL after being away for, I believe, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, you saw it firsthand. You saw the glory that is Michel Therrien.
I know those two are buddies, but man, that is doing your friend a solid right there. And then Mike Yeo, who I don't know how anyone can think at this point that he really has a whole lot to contribute to an NHL team at this point, but that's kind of the nature of NHL coaching jobs, is that you can be as bad as they come and you're going to get a second chance. No doubt about it. I mean, Therrien and Yeo probably, I know that their teams have had regular season success in the past, but in my opinion, two of the worst coaches that we've seen in the NHL, and now they're going to be behind the bench for the Philadelphia Flyers. Not in head coaching capacity, mind you, but still just kind of, and I don't think that either guy was on the radar for the Ducks, but it's still just kind of mind-boggling.
Mike Yeo might have been, and I mean, look no further than how good the St. Louis Blues are doing for indication of how bad Mike Yeo was. I didn't realize this. I looked at the numbers because someone had mentioned something about looking at the Blues as kind of looking at a team because they're now in the conference final as we speak on, Thursday night, with the conference finals, I believe, starting on Saturday for them, and how they turned it around, not giving up on your season too early. And in my head, I kind of remembered back to the Blues kind of still having decent numbers under Mike Yeo, and just underperforming, couldn't get a save, and then kind of Craig Berube comes in and more so just starts getting the saves that Mike Yeo wasn't able to get. No, Mike Yeo is a bad coach. Mike Yeo is a very, very bad coach. And you look at those numbers, it's night and day if you compare Mike Yeo compared to Craig Berube. And that kind of makes sense and checks out with that roster being still good. And just the difference between the two of them is insane. Under Mike Yeo, they were average to a little bit below average team in terms of a lot of different shot metrics, different things like that. And then once Craig Berube comes in, I think they're top 5 in the league in terms of expected goals for percentage. And so that just kind of shows you how bad of a coach Mike Yeo is.
Absolutely. I mean, there's definitely a lot going on there. But back to the Ducks coaching search. So it's hard to know if they were really keying in on either guy. But another name that you can cross off the list, Rickard Gronborg, coach for the national Swedish team for the last, I believe, 8 seasons, has signed a 2-year contract with ZSC Lions in the Swiss League, which is a pretty good European league. And there's no out clause in his contract, so it's not as if he got a NHL offer, he could just jump ship and come over to the NHL. He was a guy who there was a lot of buzz about, a guy who could potentially make the leap into pro North American hockey without really any national, I guess, top level pro club experience. I don't know. He was a guy who had been mentioned with, had been kind of connected to Anaheim a lot just because of the Swedish connection.
Yeah,
but
well, and
not going to happen.
And a lot of mainstream media people were kind of tagging him as potentially the guy from Sweden to be able to make the jump over to North America. You have guys like Jeff Merrick vying for him, Elliot Friedman also doing that. I think when you look at him, I think the most interesting thing that I can really bring up is the fact that he's only been a national team coach. And so when you think about that, being a national team coach, especially the senior national team, you're really only the coach for a month or two out of the year for world championships, maybe.
Well, it is a year-long program.
Yes.
In the sense that they're constantly leading versions of the national team.
Yes.
But the top men's team is obviously only certain periods of the year.
But my point is, it's kind of like a rotating group of people that are coming in and out. It's not the same team the entire time that you're managing over the course of an entire season. And so I think if you look at Rickard Gronborg as someone who's always open to having new ideas and new things come into the league, I don't exactly hate the idea of having him having to get some experience with a club before making that jump, whether that would be in the AHL, whether that is in Europe, before being able to make the jump as a head coach to the NHL. Because you look at his head coaching experience, he's never coached at actual club level, even some people might want to make the fact that, well, there are NCAA coaches that make the jump to the NHL. I think coaching an NCAA team is different than coaching a national team because you're still managing that team. You're managing the people on that team over the course of that entire season as compared to maybe just a couple months. And so, I mean, it kind of goes back to almost like thinking in terms of soccer where you have your national team coaches that really only get the team over summer and really just have to get the best out of a team over a short sample size. And kind of I make it kind of best in that short little stint, whereas your club manager has to really kind of get the best and manage minutes, manage all this different stuff. And so I think there is a difference between the two, and I think that Gronborg having to go and manage a Swiss team is probably going to be good for him to be able to kind of work out the differences there before taking over an NHL team, because you don't exactly want to have to figure out those differences while you're behind an NHL team's bench.
To be fair to Gronborg, he does have experience coaching junior as well as lower level.
It was like 1 year though, right?
Lower level. He coached 4 seasons of lower level pro hockey in North America in the late 90s. So not AHL, not even ACHL, the defunct AWHL. But still, I mean, I'm going to give him that credit at the very least.
Fair.
But yeah, it's not really recent experience, and it's not what I would say is equitable experience. I don't know. I mean, there's kind of a lot being made about how, why wouldn't the NHL take him in? New blood, new experience. It's like, yeah, that's all well and good, but I mean, I think that there is kind of a bare minimum that has to be met in terms of experience. And I think that there's no harm in bringing him in as an assistant.
Yep.
But I don't know if he was willing to do that, to come all the way back to North America just to be an assistant. But that's kind of how these things work, unfortunately.
I really, really would have loved to have seen him behind an AHL bench, to be honest.
Yeah, I just if teams are so reluctant to bring him in, it's like, well, okay, so you're really just, there's no possibility of bringing him in, but bring in Michel Therrien and Mike Yeo as your assistants. There's just something to that. I don't know. Anyway, no need to belabor that point. So yes, the candidates that remain in the field, obviously Dallas Eakins has been pegged as the
front runner,
kind of the presumptive favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Although recent Eric Stevens article doesn't really paint him as the favorite, but just as kind of the most obvious candidate. And then of course Sheldon Keefe of the Toronto Marlies, and then I would put Jay Woodcroft in that list because he's been an NHL assistant under Todd McClellan longer than he's been an AHL head coach. So he actually has more NHL experience than he does AHL. He was a head coach in the AHL right now. So I think there's some good candidates out there for the Ducks right now, and we'll just have to see where it goes. But my bet would be that it's someone from that group, or maybe it's someone that we're not even thinking of right now. Maybe someone on these 4 teams that remain in the playoffs.
I really think that it's most likely going to be one of those guys, simply because you look at kind of everything we've heard from Murray about this team, about kind of where they're going, that he wants to have someone who can really relate to the kids. That's really kind of the most important thing. And Getzlaf's even, I think, made mention of that he's like, having someone who can connect with them is the most important thing here. And so if you look at the guys that we just mentioned, they kind of fill that role. You look at a Sheldon Keefe, who's a younger guy, very analytics heavy, really did great things with the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds. My only concern with him is, will him and Murray see eye to eye? That would be kind of my biggest concern there, because if you look back at the interview that, or not interview, but at 31 Thoughts that came out recently with Elliot Friedman talking about the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds team, and talking about how they got complete buy-in from everyone, and Kyle Dubas used those numbers, and Sheldon Keefe believed in them, and that really allowed them to have that success and turn around the team and the franchise. I don't know if there would be that buy-in from the top down that Sheldon Keefe would kind of want. And I really just kind of, it seems like Dallas Eakins, because he's kind of the known commodity for the Ducks, he knows the players, all the different stuff. It really seems like he's the front runner here. And as much as I've been on the Dallas Eakins bandwagon, I think in terms of looking at the guys available and who would probably be the best hire from the list in terms of what they can bring to the table, I think I haven't flipped, but I do think Sheldon Keefe is probably the best candidate available, all things considered. But I think Dallas Eakins gets the job.
Yeah, I think that Sheldon Keefe is probably the more elite candidate. I mean, the Marlies have won a Calder Cup. They've generally had very good seasons, regular seasons. He's also, with Keefe, the Greyhound stint that you're talking about was also 5 seasons ago. So that's starting to have been a little while ago.
True.
And, we've consistently said that whoever Murray brings in as a head coach, he kind of molds his approach to. So
that's a fair point.
I'm actually not really too concerned about that. I think that if you're hiring someone, you're hiring them to make it work. You're not hiring them to impose your will upon them.
True.
I don't think that's how they do it. So we'll see. I mean, it's something that there's not really a whole lot of news on, but the field is kind of narrowing. And it's basically, let me ask you this. Right now, would you bet on the Ducks' next head coach being Dallas Eakins or anyone else?
I think Dallas Eakins is above a 50% chance. I'd put him at 80 to 90% chance to be the next head coach of the Ducks.
80 to 90. All right. Well, there you go. All right, so that's enough Ducks talk for today, at least for right now. Although inevitably,
One name that Fire Carlisle brought up is I believe this is Benoit Olivier Gru's dad, Ben Gru, as a potential head coaching candidate. I've seen his name thrown around the last little bit. He hasn't even been on my radar, to be completely honest, as being a potential head coach. He's the current head coach of the Syracuse Crunch.
Yeah, I mean, that's another AHL team that has had a lot of success in recent years, partly due to great drafting, but also they've been a well-managed team.
So, I mean, right now, really kind of the names we've mentioned are really the only ones that are on our radar in terms of names that we've heard mentioned, but it wouldn't shock me if someone kind of comes out like that who's kind of more of an unknown.
Yeah, so we'll see. All right, let's get into this recap. Definitely a lot to go over here. And just as a shout out, I'm going to be working off a lot of from the recap of our good buddy John Broadbent's website,
who is in our Twitch chat right now. So he's going to be he's going to be judging everything. He's going to be judging everything we say. Love you,
fine.
John.
We're used to that. But yeah, if you're a Gulls fan and you want some kind of real close coverage of the team, definitely recommend this site. Yeah. It's got everything you need to stay up to date with the team, and he's doing all of it from New Zealand. So
yep, and also check out his Twitter account, Defend the Nest SD at Defend the Nest SD, and then like you said, the website is defendthenest.com.
Yeah. So I guess a couple notes before we get into the recap of the game. No Josh Mahura last night, and also no Kevin Boyle.
Yeah,
Kevin Boyle both currently out, but Boyle with a concussion at this point in time.
Yep, that Kevin Boyle injury could really be dangerous for this Gulls team from what we saw in this game with how Glass is in net.
Yeah, he was very Glass-like. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
The first period, I thought that Sam Steele had some pretty good moments.
Yeah.
Early in that first period, he had that great play just coming down on the rush, where he's able to outweight the defenseman and then just kind of stick handle around him. Not necessarily sure if that's a play you get to make in the NHL, but it was still pretty impressive that he had the kind of presence of mind to wait the guy out as opposed to rushing his move. Also, Max Comtois had a really good chance early on from the left circle, I should say, to the left of the Bakersfield goaltender. Bakersfield would actually take the lead early on. Klus and Kosola had a pretty rough shift early, and basically an odd rush going back the other way. That one, I'm not going to fault Glass. There was pretty much no chance.
Yeah. Kosola didn't really do the best job ever getting back to be able to cover the man. Really kind of left him wide open for basically a cross-ice pass to finish it.
Yeah, and it was interesting because the commentators for the Gulls were really harping on Kosola after that play. And I don't know, I haven't watched enough Gulls games to know if that's the norm or not, if that's kind of the perception of him on this team, because a lot of Ducks fans think of Kosola as this guy who kind of should have an NHL job by now or should be pushing for an NHL job. So I'm curious to get Gulls diehards' thoughts on that.
Yeah, and
whether or not that's the rap on him.
And it's not only Kosola on that play. I believe it was
Klus. Klus was loose.
Basically, it was a pretty bad back check where you had a couple guys gliding and not exactly back checking hard. It really kind of looked like a game in the middle of January, not exactly a playoff game with how that back check was going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And then maybe the highlight, the low light of the night is what we could call it, and what could have potentially a pretty big impact on this series. Max Jones driving to the net off of a face-off play, gets tangled up as he's going to the net, draws a penalty on it. And at first, people thought, he may have just, gotten his bell rung, getting cross-checked in the face. But on the replay, you see that his left knee, his left leg gets tangled up, and it kind of bends inward. Which is not how it's supposed to bend.
Yeah.
I'm not a doctor, but I can tell you that he had to leave. He was helped off the ice and did not return. And he was putting absolutely no weight on that left leg. And, Max Jones, a guy who's had his fair share of injuries already in his young career, there's just nothing, it's almost like a non-contact injury in a way. It's just, there's nothing you can do there. I don't know. That was pretty tough to watch.
Yeah, it was scary. And I mean, you have the cross check to the face. And actually, when I first watched it, I didn't even see the knee buckle. What I saw, and maybe it's partially this, maybe it's partially the knee buckling. But when he got up, he really kind of looked a little dazed there. He didn't exactly look kind of
Yeah, it was kind of both.
All there. And so when he was kind of having to be helped off, and yes, that leg was dangling, but I more kind of read that as like, oh, maybe this is a concussion, simply because he didn't have his balance about him, and that's why he needed help off. Now, granted, I don't like speculating on this stuff because neither of us are doctors. We don't know. And so it's
Right.
one of those things where maybe it's a concussion, maybe it's just his leg, but all we know is that he had to be helped off the ice. He didn't return to this game. This is a guy who had a really great run with the Ducks at the end of the year and is kind of having an impact in the AHL playoffs and really made an impact with the goals over the course of the season. And the fact that he's out is a big loss for this team.
It is, and I mean he is part of that great line, and I don't know. I think that if you watch that play, it could definitely be a concussion, but it's also definitely a leg injury because you see that leg bend inward, and then afterwards just him not putting any weight on it. I'm definitely going to go out and say that there's a leg injury there, and there could be more. So yeah, it's not what you want to see. And I'm hoping for him, for his own development, that it's nothing too serious.
Yeah.
But as weird as it sounds, maybe this is presumptive, but I think that if it had only been a concussion or only been quote unquote his bell getting rung, he would have been more likely to come back in the game than if it was his knee getting twisted into a wrong direction.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's just me having a low estimation of hockey culture. But anyway, okay, so Ducks. Jeez, that was a Freudian
slip.
I don't even think that's Freudian, but anyway, Gulls tie the game back up. Adam Cracknell makes it a 1-1 hockey game. It was a really nice shift for Max Comtois down low. Jacob Larson also pinching down low. Cracknell's able to bury it home. The Condors would take the lead back. Glass gets sniped basically up top, short side. Not a good goal to give up, especially later in that period. So going into the first intermission, the Gulls trailing 2-1, and I don't know. I wasn't too impressed with their first period. I thought it wasn't much. It was kind of a disjointed period.
Yeah, I mean, they had their good moments. They had their moments with the Sam Steele chance early on. They had obviously the goal from Cracknell there. There was a nice little play from Comtois. I really think that there were certain lines that I think that were very noticeable. I think Sam Steele and Kiefer Sherwood, along with Max Comtois, basically kind of the usual suspects that you would expect, really kind of made that impact and made themselves known. But I think that they also allowed the Condors to come at them a fair bit and get some chances.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There was definitely a lot going on there. And, keep in mind that this is a series where the Gulls are up, or they were up, substantially. And so the Condors had to come out and basically make some type of statement and, really put the pressure on the Gulls.
Yes.
Because otherwise it's kind of all but over.
Well, yeah, I mean, if the Gulls, we've already said the result, but if the Gulls would have won this game, they would have gone up 3-0 in this series against a Bakersfield team that has had an insanely good AHL season. So, I mean, you knew that Bakersfield was going to come out of this game hot, really bring it, try to really take it to the Gulls and win this game to be able to make it 2-1.
Absolutely. And then early in the second period, Glass again lets in a one-timer from distance, no screen. That would make it 3-1 Condors. And then that's kind of where the party temporarily started down in San Diego. The Gulls basically erased a 2-goal deficit within a matter of seconds.
I think it was like seconds. I think it was like within like 10, 20 seconds. I think I was watching the game on AHL TV. I saw Eric Stevens tweet about the goal, and in that tweet, he said, "Oh wait, now it's tied. Sherwood scored," and it's all in that same tweet announcing the first goal that I had just seen. So they happen pretty close to one another.
Yeah, it was pretty funny that pretty much all of the Ducks media contingent is tweeting from San Diego. That
Yeah.
I guess they were all at the game.
Yeah.
I guess it doesn't hurt to have a hockey team in San Diego to draw the media during the offseason. I'm sure if the game was in, I don't know, Bakersfield, if the roles were flipped, that they would all be there.
Yeah. I mean, it's not.
Hey, I don't blame them. I'm not knocking it.
It's not too bad to be able to just make the drive down the 5, go cover the game,
maybe hang out after,
make a little money, write for the website that you're getting paid to write for. Not too bad.
Yeah, seems like a pretty good setup.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kalle Kosola, who we were just kind of, I guess, critiquing a little bit, would make it 3-2, just accept a pass off of the half wall, then takes it in, goes far side, and makes it 3-2. Again, probably not a great goal to give up for the Condors either. I mean, goaltending maybe not the strongest there. By the way, I should mention that, we talk a lot about the Ducks having a lot of prospects in their lineup. And, the Condors definitely have some young names as well.
Yeah.
That we'll probably see up with the Oilers next season. Evan Bouchard, who is a rookie, who was their top draft pick last summer. And in addition to that, I think Yamamoto is actually injured right now, if I'm not mistaken. But and also Dave Manson, Josh Manson's father, is the assistant coach for the Condors, which is something I forgot to mention.
I did not even know that. Good shout. Real quick, John pointed out in our Twitch chat on Kosola, and I figured this was a perfect time to mention it after we're talking about his goal. This is about the San Diego radio announcer said they were on him because he hasn't really had that great of a season compared to seasons past. When he finally scored last night, and BJ, who's the color commentator, was saying if he can get hot, look out. That's the kind of mindset they are in when harping on him. So I remember them specifically mentioning that when he scored this goal. So maybe this is a good sign of things to come with Kosola, who's had a bit of a rough season, and maybe this can get him going in this playoff run.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point he's just kind of a guy who, unless he gets called up and has a massive shooting percentage bender, is probably going to be a tweener. Because that's just kind of how these things work, unfortunately.
Yeah, Boom's not banned. Chimes in saying Yamamoto had wrist surgery, probably out for the playoffs.
Yeah. Kiefer Sherwood then ties it up just 11 seconds later. So yes, in a matter of seconds.
Yes.
And this one was a really nice goal, actually. The puck just kind of squirts out into the middle of the ice. He's able to corral it on his backhand and then just spins around and fires it on net, and that would go through Condors goaltender. And I feel like he scored a goal like this in the NHL. I don't know if it's just deja vu or
it's
whatever
possible.
It is, but he looked good. He was very noticeable all game long, as he tends to be in the NHL. So I'm, again, pretty intrigued to see what he looks like next season. But yeah, that was quite the flurry from the Gulls, who were a lot more aggressive in that second period. And what's interesting, though, is that the lead didn't really, or I should say after that, so after they tie it up, then Andy Welinski would actually add and give the Gulls the lead, just basically tease it off from the point, is able to bring in and all the way to the top of the circle. And that would make it 4-3. So the Gulls go from being down 3-1 all the way back to being up 4-3.
And the building absolutely popped. That place was absolutely rocking after that Welinski goal. And they kept mentioning it that this is a Wednesday night, and this is not really the crowd size that you typically see for a Wednesday night AHL game. Now, granted, it's a playoff game, but I mean, Gulls fans were out in full force and making noise and being loud. It was really nice to see and really fun to see.
Yeah, good old Pechanga Arena. I feel like the Gulls, they're kind of like the perfect setup where they're a city that has a pretty big base, of just population and that kind of sports fan demographic, but is kind of underserved because they only have one top level professional franchise, with the Padres. They obviously lost the Chargers a couple years ago, so, and plus the Gulls have been there for a long time, but there's just kind of that perfect storm of decent market plus maybe a little bit underserved for their kind of overall profile. Yeah,
really. I mean, there's no real competition down there for the sports dollars come basically October through, pretty much now when baseball season starts, when you have the Padres kicking up. But, I mean, once the Padres season kicks up, it's going to take away some dollars. But there are playoff games going on, and I guarantee you some people will want to go see playoff games. So
Yeah.
That's kind of the big draw for them.
Yeah, $2 Bud Lights. I mean, you can't really beat that. Let's see here. So later in the second period, the Condors would tie it back up. This one was on the penalty kill for the Gulls. Just unable to clear the front of their net. It was kind of reminiscent of some goals that the Ducks let in during the 18-19 season. Just kind of sloppy in front of their net. So all that flurry, all of that action, all of those goals in the second, and we're kind of almost back to where we started, just a 4-4 hockey game heading into the third period. So I don't know. I mean, as we're going along this recap here, any things that stood out to you up to this point?
I mean, really the only thing that stood out to me was I actually thought the Gulls outplayed. By the end of the second period, they outplayed the Condors. Yes, there were some leaking moments on the back end, but for the most part, I thought the Gulls played well and really just kind of were let down by Glass having a poor game up until this point. I mean, you look at the goal from far out wide that he let in. It wasn't the best game up until this point for him. And I mean, you have to wonder if they were able to have a goalie that can make a save. If Kevin Boyle was healthy, would this be a 4-4 game at this point? Would it have been a different scoreline? What would have happened?
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the goals that Glass was letting in, apparently he's been playing a little better before this, but this was just not a good performance by him. I mean, I don't know how else you're supposed to frame it. But anyway, the madness would continue early in the third period. Corey Tropp would bang home a loose puck to make it 5-4 Gulls. And then after that, Sam Steele would add to the Gulls' lead, making it 6-4 off of a really nice feed from Kiefer Sherwood. It
was a great pass from Sherwood. Really great from right in front of the net to be able to find Steele on the backside and really just put it into a wide open net. These guys seem to have some chemistry. And I'm really kind of bummed that Max Jones got hurt because it seems like they kind of had some stuff going with those three on a line together. And the fact that Jones got hurt, I don't know, bums me out because I want to see those guys play some more together. But maybe this is a sign of things to come with Sherwood and Steele being on the same line. Maybe if, like we said at the beginning of the show, Dallas Hakens becomes the head coach, maybe he keeps these guys together on the big club. Who knows? But I really think that some of the chemistry built during this playoff run can be really key and big to the Ducks because then that these two can play together and they can produce with one another and they can kind of have that chemistry. And whether you put them together right away, that if you do put them together, they'll be able to produce.
Yes, absolutely. And then, with 9 minutes left in the third period, Bakersfield would get one back, deflected shot from the point, and that would bring them within one. And then the Condors would tie it with just about 10 seconds left in the game. Glass had actually made a couple of big saves up to that point, but the Gulls just really, I mean, we can talk about goaltending maybe costing them this one, but they were not good in their own zone tonight. I mean, a lot of these goals were some of them were tip-ins, but a lot of them were just unable to clear the front of the net, unable to, keep shots out wide, and that really cost them. I mean, especially at the end there. I mean, the Condors, it had like four guys in the crease, just banging away. And I mean, that's playoff hockey at its finest. You'll have to forgive the cliche there, but that would make it 6-6 heading into overtime. And then early, basically just 39 seconds into sudden death, the Condors are able to win this one. Just an absolutely wild hockey game. So they win it 7-6. And what was, again, just a completely wild game. Got fired over the shoulder of Glass. So I don't know. What do you kind of take away from this game? Because it feels like it didn't feel like it had a flow. It just felt like just this insane back and forth. Yeah. So how much is there to really take away from this?
What I've noticed when I watch an AHL game, which granted isn't obviously as much as when I watch an NHL game, but what I notice when I watch an AHL game is you have a fair amount more kind of sloppiness. A lot of that sloppiness gets cleaned up when you hit the NHL level. And so it's all about kind of capitalizing on mistakes. And those mistakes start to happen more and more and more. And you have kind of some more choppy games like this one, which can also be fun. I mean, there's people out there that love junior hockey. I think Jeff Merrick's one of the biggest ones because it's not this perfect, well-refined product. It creates this kind of chaotic situation that happens. And I think that you see a bit of more of that with the AHL product. I think the takeaways that I have from this as someone who wasn't able to watch the first two games of this series is that I came into this series kind of very concerned, simply just kind of with the reputation of Bakersfield with the season they had. I think they had, a 15-game winning streak or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And the fact that they got, I believe it was Evan Bouchard was the one who was on the London Knights, and he came in and had like 5 points or something along those lines in their first series. And so he was having a really good first series after just coming in from the London Knights. And so I was a bit worried to see how the Gulls would hang with them. And granted, the Gulls got some reinforcements with Max Comtois joining the team. And I mean, the team seemed pretty equal. And if the Gulls have a better goalie on the night, they probably win the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say because at the same time, the Condors did not receive great goaltending either.
That's a good point. That's fair. They actually, I think, changed their goalie halfway through the game.
Yeah, they got Skinner in there. So it's just one of those that, again, it's tough to say really how much you can really take away from it. But yeah, I mean, to come back to your point about the Condors' overall season, I mean, they were a very good team in the AHL regular season. I mean, they had the 5th best shot differential in the entire league this season at plus 306, which is a pretty big number. Of course, that's in all situations. But when you consider that the Gulls were 12th, just barely above break even, plus 31, I think it just goes to show that the Gulls are kind of dealing with a juggernaut here in the Bakersfield Condors. And look, they're still up 2-1 in the series. Game 4 is tomorrow night, or I guess by the time you're listening, it's tonight. In San Diego. So there's a lot of hockey left to be played here. And I think that you could almost bake in that the Condors were going to win Game 3 just because, I mean, the Gulls stole the first 2, on the road in Bakersfield.
Quadruple overtime Game 1.
Yeah, and so I think to come back and, drop a third one in a row for a team that good with the Condors, it just didn't feel all that likely. I guess some takeaways for me, just again, more looking at this from a scouting perspective, looking at this just from a talent evaluation. I thought that Max Comtois looked good. Again, he's one of those guys who it's just starting to feel like he's going to be one of those guys who maybe doesn't have the highest impact, at least at 5-on-5 early in his career, but he's a guy who just produces. He's a guy who just finds those areas of the ice to get to offensively. Has a really good nose for the net. I thought Isaac Lundestrom looked a lot more aggressive than maybe he looked early this year. Sam Steele looked really good. So I thought it was a good night in terms of how the Ducks prospects looked overall.
I agree. And I think Lundestrom is a guy who definitely, like you said, looked good. And I like that they have him playing with Comtois. And I think Cracknell's a good guy to have on that line to give him a little bit of a veteran presence to be able to play with them. And at the AHL level, he's a guy that has been producing of late. And so that gives them a bit of a trigger man. And you have Lundestrom being able to distribute between Comtois and Cracknell right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I should also mention that the Condors have another talented blue liner that I forgot to mention, Caleb Jones on the back end, Seth Jones' brother. Yeah. So there's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
And also I did want to mention Jacob Larson. It almost feels odd still calling him a prospect because feels like he's been around forever at this point. But he is indeed still a prospect, and he looked fine. I guess a good night for him at this point in his career is just not being noticeable, which he wasn't very. Although he did factor into one of the goals, so I guess I should recant that a little bit. But he looked fine. And then outside of that, again, Kiefer Sherwood looking very good. It's kind of hard to consider Kiefer Sherwood a prospect as well, just because he was an unsigned college guy an undrafted guy who it doesn't feel like there was ever really any expectation for him, but he of course did very well. So it's an encouraging time. And also Troy Terry, I believe, is going to be out of the walking boot soon for that broken leg. And if the Gulls make the Calder Cup final, there's like a slim
because I think he
comes back.
I think he's out of the boot in 3 weeks.
Yeah,
so it's something that.
It's still a stretch, if we're going to see him in these playoffs for this Calder Cup run, but it is a possibility, although a very slim one. Okay, anything else you want to mention about that game?
I'm curious to see what they do with the goaltending. Friday, Saturday are back-to-back games. Friday in San Diego, Saturday in Bakersfield. So right now, Ole Eriksson-Ek is the backup goalkeeper for the San Diego Gulls. Will they give a rookie goalkeeper who, I believe does not have any AHL experience, if I'm remembering correctly. Let me double check that so I don't kind of. Ole Eriksson Ek.
Yeah, no, he's just come over from his club team, in Finland, and so that's not really a guy who you're looking for with a ton of experience.
Well, so is it better?
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, is it better to play him or play Glass in back-to-back games?
Well, the thing is I don't really know what the norm is in the AHL in the playoffs, because obviously back-to-backs are just something that everyone has to deal with.
True.
And so I don't know if what they do in those situations. By the way, I did misspeak a little bit there. Ole Eriksson coming over from Finland. Or sorry, Sweden. Jeez, I got it wrong twice. Also, I can tell that you're in soccer mode because you called it goalkeeper like 3 times there.
Yeah. What can I say? Champions League final.
Corrupted. You've been corrupted.
I've been corrupted. I've always been corrupted.
No, but you're infected now. You're not just corrupted.
Fair. Hey. But last night was a glorious night.
I don't know. Maybe defending the nest can fill us in on what the norm is there in the AHL.
Yeah. So if I see John chime in the Twitch chat, I'll let everyone out there know. But for now, that's basically, I think, going to do it for the recap. So I think let's get into a couple questions. We've got one, maybe 2 in our Twitch chat. But so for those of you listening to the recorded version of this or watching the video version of this on YouTube, we actually do a Twitch stream of this show, and we do it for every single one of our main pod episodes. And so you can find that at twitch.tv/AnaheimCallingSBN. And at Twitch, you can help support us in a way that's completely free to you if you have Amazon Prime. If you have Amazon Prime, you get Twitch Prime. And with Twitch Prime, you can subscribe to the show in a way completely free to you. So with that, you'll get prioritized chat time or questions. You'll get special emotes in the chat and special badge next to your name, and we will also give you a shout out if we see it as we're going. So did want to make mention Varluna resubbed for 4 months in a row. CMonkey 001 resubscribed for 6 straight months. Varluna said, I've missed these pods. CMonkey said 6 months of great Twitch broadcasts, looking forward to many more. Keep up the good work. And then good friend the Hardcore Luchador subscribed on Twitch also. So we had a question from Boom Snap Bam earlier on saying, are we also watching the NHL playoffs on top of the AHL, and what are our thoughts? So really quickly, I want to make mention before we start saying just kind of some overarching thoughts. We also have a Patreon where you can find us at patreon.com/acpod. And at $5 a month, you get 2 bonus episodes a month. And the Patreon episodes that we've done so far are all basically playoff related. We've done a playoff preview where we previewed the entire first round, gave our picks, broke down all series, different things like that. Then we did a first round review and broke down the different second round series, gave our picks for the second round series. And I believe this weekend we will be breaking down the second round of the playoffs and giving our conference final predictions. Yeah.
We're a little late on that one, unfortunately, but with time constraints, even still, we're going to get something out for round 3.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely check that out again. That's patreon.com/acpod. For those of you who are tuned in live on Twitch, I've thrown up that link in the chat there.
So overall thoughts on the NHL playoffs?
I mean, geez, a lot of Game 7s.
A lot of Game 7s. What is it?
A lot of Game 7s.
And there's been 3 Game 7s that have gone to overtime? Something like that? I mean,
it's been absolutely wild.
Yeah.
Round 1 was a flurry of upsets and weirdness. Tampa Bay Lightning were out in 4 games, the shortest possible amount of time. It's weird because as crazy as round 1 was, I feel like round 2, it kind of came back to reality a little bit. You know, I thought that Carolina made short work of the Islanders,
which makes sense.
I thought that. And by the way, the Islanders joining a very, you could call it infamous group of teams to sweep the first round and then get swept in the second round. But I thought that Carolina should have made short work of the Islanders. I thought that they were definitely the better team, and they proved that. Columbus, Boston, obviously that was going to be kind of a meat and potatoes type series, and that's what it was. But Boston, to me, was clearly the better team. I did pick Columbus to give it away in our Patreon pod, but that was more, I think, it was more part of the overall weirdness
craziness.
of the time.
Yeah, I think I
just
did the same
kind of
thing.
Riding the high. But I think if you think back to it, Boston was the
better team.
Yeah, and Tuukka Rask was also very good.
Yes.
So Boston, Carolina, although it's not an Eastern Conference matchup or Eastern Conference final matchup that a lot of people would have picked early on, I do think that it was also one that was feasible. You could see it happening. It wasn't, a lot of people had Tampa Bay and Washington or whatever, but Carolina, Boston, if you pay attention more to the numbers and you figured, well, let's say Tampa doesn't make it, Boston, Carolina, it felt like it was possible.
Yep. I mean, I had Carolina from the very beginning making the conference final. I was a believer in them. Tampa not making it was weird to me, and so that was the hard thing to really kind of picture. But I think overall the playoffs have been a lot of fun. The Game 7s have been really, really fun. They've all been good. The first round was definitely hectic. I mean, the first, I really kind of equate it to the NCAA basketball tournament, where the first round you just have the games constantly going, and upsets happen, and
it was like 5 games a day
because there are so many more series, different, and so many more games in that first round, so many more series in the first round. Weird shit happens. And this year it definitely happened in that first round. It felt like anything could happen any day. And I mean, you had the Avs winning, and it, like you said, I think the second round, it really kind of brought things back to reality. You had the Sharks winning. Granted, it took them 7 to beat the Avs, but they still won. The Blues
with Mark Jones playing well.
The Blues being the Stars is probably the better or the outcome that was to be expected. Granted, it took 7. But it seems like going into these series, the teams that were expected to win won. And
yeah, I mean, ironically, as crazy and as bracket busting as round 1 was, I still ended up getting the Western Conference final matchup correct with Blues Sharks.
Same.
So I feel a little vindicated there. But yeah, to break down the Western leg a little bit more, I thought that Blues Stars, it was a series that was kind of hard to watch in my opinion. I thought that it wasn't the best hockey. It was really just kind of what I call ping pong hockey, where it's a lot of just dumping and chasing back and forth, and the goals are kind of not the prettiest goals, and there's just a lot of mucking it up in the corners. And I thought that that's the game. I think that that's where St. Louis thrives, is they do have skill, but they're also able to just wear you down with their 5-on-5 game. And that's what they did, I think, ultimately to the Stars. And then Avalanche Sharks was definitely a treat. I think that I always saw the Sharks winning that series, and they did. And now Sharks Blues should be pretty interesting. So should we just give our predictions for these series while we're on here?
We've been asked. We might as well. Really quickly,
we might as well.
I think we should mention the only kind of relevant Ducks news for the playoffs, which is the first round pick.
Yes.
And so the first round pick that the Ducks will be getting in the trade for Brandon Montour, it now will either be 28th or 29th. It will be either, now that it's the Sharks and the Blues playing in the conference final, whichever one of them loses that series, the Ducks will be taking their pick. And that, I forget the actual way it can be 28 or 29, because it's dependent on, I believe, the standings of the two teams that lose in the conference final. But so it will either be 28th or 29th.
Yes, and Brandon Montour reunited with Shea Theodore on Team Canada at the World Championships.
And Adam Henrique.
Adam Henrique also there. But yeah, so let's start with the Western Conference. The game, that series has not started yet, so who do you got?
This is a tough one.
Do you got? I don't think it's that tough, but the floor is yours.
This is a tough one because I want to say the Sharks, and I'm probably going to say the Sharks, but I'm a believer in the Blues also. It feels right for them. Biddington's been really good for them. I really want to see, as much as there are different sects of the fan base, that was sect.
S-E-C-T.
Yep, that was the word that is the word I was going for, not the other word that potentially came out of my mouth. That really dislike Pat Maroon. There are also ones that really like Pat Maroon. I'm in the side that really likes Pat Maroon. And so I was really happy to see him score the Game 7 overtime winner. All the stuff that came out about him and his son, John Hamm, everything like that was just awesome. And so my heart is probably pulling towards St. Louis, honestly, even though I do want to see Joe Thornton get a cup and the Sharks. So really either team winning, I'm happy with. More John Hamm is always a good thing.
All right, but let's get to the prediction here. You're stalling. You're stalling. I know you're going to enjoy it. I know it's a great series.
St. Louis in 7.
What?
I'm going off my beaten path of what I've predicted at all levels and said the Sharks at all levels, but I think just what I've seen, I'm going Blues.
I had Sharks going to the Cup final.
I did
when
too.
This all started.
I did too.
I'm not wavering from that now. The Sharks have survived a lot more than I thought that they possibly could. First off, round 1 with Vegas, the now infamous Game 7 is definitely something that I did not expect them to survive. That
cross-check to the face.
Yeah. And then obviously I think round 2 was definitely another crazy one. And so they've survived it all so far. I feel like at this point they're just kind of bulletproof. I think it's going to be another grinder of a series. I think they're going to have to play 7 more games. They're going to have to play 21 games to get to the Cup final.
Yeah.
I have the Sharks in 7 in the series.
Yeah, I mean, it's a toss-up series.
If they can get this far with Martin Jones as their goalie, Joe Pavelski having to miss, almost an entire series, I don't know. I don't know what more they can't do.
You know what's crazy? Having come into the season, if I were to tell you the goalies in the Western Conference Final were Martin Jones and Jordan Binnington, which goalie would you feel more comfortable with? You would have easily said Martin Jones because Jordan Binnington was a career AHLer.
Unknown quantity,
And it's completely crazy that Jordan Binnington has become this kind of savior.
But I feel like the Sharks have... Martin Jones has played well in round 2. He wasn't not nearly as good in round 1, but...
he's had a good bounce back.
Yeah, but with round 2, he was good, and I feel like they've kind of shown that they can... It's going to make it a lot harder for them to advance, but even with him in net, they've just found ways to get it done.
I think the Blues, and we'll get into this more when we get into our deep dive on the different series when we do it on the Patreon pods, but I think the Blues are a bit of a different animal than what they've seen so far in the playoffs with how they play.
Vegas was really good.
No, but the way St. Louis plays is different. They're heavier. They will get on you in a way that Vegas doesn't, in a way that Colorado doesn't. I think the 3 lines that St. Louis can roll out are better than the 3 lines collectively that Vegas rolled out. I think that there's I just think St. Louis is a better team than anything San Jose has faced so far.
They are very good. I think that they are rightfully the team to be in this position. I don't know how much better they are than, say, if Vegas had made it this far. Just if you look at the top end talent of those teams. Mm-hmm. I also think that the Sharks are by far the best team that the Blues have faced so far.
True. Completely fair.
The Stars were kind of a plucky underdog in my opinion. Bishop was really good.
The
obviously their blue line, but the Jets, they weren't the Jets of seasons prior, and that's kind of how it shook out. So we'll see. All right. Eastern Conference time, prediction time. Hurricanes, Bruins. You went first in the last one. I'm going to go first here. As much as I want to pick the Hurricanes because I hate the Bruins and I think the Hurricanes are really good.
Just do it.
I'm going Boston in 7.
Just do it.
Boston in 7.
Is Hurricanes in 4 off the board now?
Well, I think Boston won tonight.
Boston did win.
Yeah. But I just Bruins, the Bruins have this air of, I don't want to call it invincibility about them, but they're just a handful. That team, if it's not the actual ability that's winning them games, it's the cheapness, it's the refs, like whatever it is, they get goaltending out of nowhere from Tuukka Rask. They just seem to be able to do it all, and it pains me to say this because I'm the furthest thing from a Bruins fan, but you gotta show respect. You gotta give credit where credit's due. But that being said, I have it in 7. I could easily see the Hurricanes winning it, but my gut tells me Boston.
Hurricanes in 6.
Okay, fine, fair. Again, I feel like all outcomes are possible for this series because both teams are very good. But if I have to pick, I'm gonna pick Boston.
I think and cup pick. You want me to go first?
Yeah, go for it.
Cup pick is gonna be Hurricanes in 6, and we get the biggest storm surge of all time.
I have the Sharks. They're doing it.
Hurricanes in 6, biggest storm surge of all time. Going with my heart.
I'm going with the Sharks, man.
All right, Conn Smythe. We had Tyler the Frostback ask Conn Smythe pick.
I would say right now for the Sharks, probably Tomas Hertl. I think he's leading them in scoring.
Yeah, for Carolina, that's a difficult one. I guess Aho?
Yeah, probably Aho.
Aho or Dougie Hamilton?
Yeah, probably Aho. I mean, he's been really good for them. They haven't really gotten that dominant. I mean, they have gotten really good goaltending from Mrazek, and Curtis McElhinney.
Yeah,
but
McBackup.
But I don't think that either of those guys really fit that kind of Conn Smythe goalie, candidacy. So probably Aho, I would say, top line center, kind of doing it all. I have to say that we all knew the Hurricanes were a good team, but the way that they've looked so far, obviously game 1 of this conference final notwithstanding, because I haven't watched it, they've been really good. I thought that series in round 1 against Washington was not an easy series for them.
No.
I mean, that Capitals team gave them everything they had, and they pulled it out in game 7. So and I think another argument you could make for the Hurricanes is that after playing a tough series in round 1, they
got rest.
They got to rest up in round 2, taking care of business against the Islanders.
Yep. And I mean, Carolina lost tonight, but they had, I believe it was a 2-1 lead at one point in time, became a 2-2 game, and Boston just got a couple goals, including an empty netter, to make it 5-2. So, yeah, it was a very, very tight game, very close. I didn't really get to watch a whole lot of it, but there's a whole lot of talk about the officiating being pretty bad throughout it.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's been horrible this entire postseason.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, that's what happens.
It's as bad as it's ever been.
Is it though? I think there's just I think
what I'm saying is it's bad as it's ever been. Like it's always been bad.
Oh, fair. I mean, I feel like the biggest issue is that I feel like the way that the game is refereed in the regular season has changed so much and so drastically that it's almost as if they're reffing it like it was a couple years ago in the playoffs. And the issue is that that's a drastic change from what we see every day, whereas it used to not be such a big change between the regular season and playoffs.
Nah, I feel like it's always been a pretty big change.
I think it's more drastic now than it ever has been, though.
I think the teams also just play so much harder in the postseason. I think it's just
Fair.
It's a different game for them to officiate. I mean, offside review, obviously, in Game 7 of Colorado, San Jose.
Do you want my opinion on it?
I mean, it was offside.
Yeah, you want my opinion on it?
There's like no question about that.
If you don't want a goal called back, don't go offside.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is I saw arguments against it on Twitter today, and I do kind of get the soccer aspect where it's like if the guy's not a part of the play, the goal can stand.
Yeah.
But as the rules are currently written, that was the right call.
Yeah.
Like through and through.
Yeah, and it's like it's one of those things where that's why we have offside review. People are pissed because it took a goal off the board, but but
it was the right call. It was absolutely the
right
call.
I've always been on the board of get the call right. Don't score a goal illegally if you want to score a goal.
Yeah, I didn't really have a huge problem with that because I just thought, yes, we are at least making sure it gets called right.
Yeah.
That's what we should be striving for here.
Yep.
So anyway, all right. Anything else you want to touch on? Do we have another question before we wrap this thing up?
No, I think that's really going to be it for questions. I can't really think of a whole lot. There's some really good stuff on the website right now that John has put together for different draft eligible prospects. We will definitely, once the playoffs start winding down for both the AHL and the NHL, we'll start doing some more stuff on the main pod as compared to the Patreon, focusing on draft eligible prospects, different things like that. And then as of now, things are up in the air for how many more kind of the regularity of these post-game shows.
People are asking us, are you guys going to keep doing these for the Gulls? Probably not is the answer that I'm going to give right now. As much as we want to do these, it's a little tougher this time of year for us. But that being said, we'll definitely try to kind of start getting more regularity just with our non-Patreon,
Yes.
our regular show overall. We did take some time off, which we definitely needed. There was also just literally nothing to talk about from a Ducks perspective. But as we approach the draft, we're now about a month away. We're definitely going to be able to kind of break some things down, and we'll probably do a couple more Gulls podcasts. Definitely not after every game, but maybe at the end of a series or at a particular juncture in the series. Something we'll work something out. We'll make it work.
I think looking at the schedule right now with this weekend, I think most likely what it will probably happen is the next show that we do will probably be breaking down the series because you have games Friday, Saturday, Monday, Wednesday. So the earliest we'll probably do a pod is next Tuesday to break down Monday's game and potentially the end of the series.
Yeah. So with all that being said, Jake, any parting words? Last words?
Come on, you Spurs.
You had an opportunity to say anything, and you chose that.
Champions League final, June 1st.
Your privilege has been revoked.
June 1st, everybody. Spurs, Liverpool. It's going to be epic. Spurs are going to win the freaking Champions League. I'm going to go and just go insane, probably get really drunk. It's going to be great.
All right. Anyway, cast that aside. Don't worry, everyone. Just cast it aside.
Wait, also the other thing is last night, my wife took over my Twitter account for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And
the best it's ever been.
There have been requests to do that again. I was going to try to yell at her to come in and say some things, but she left the room. So, yep, that's not happening. But there may be some more Monica takeovers at some point in time. Chad, our good buddy Chad, said there's never been a night where someone's covered a game and said some great things, like he dropped a stick and also mentioned they were watching Downton Abbey while watching the game all at the same time. So, great night on my Twitter feed.
That's the content we know everyone craves. All right, guys. Well, hey, we do appreciate you tuning in tonight for those live viewers on Twitch. Again, if you're not a part of the Twitch experience yet, post-game, definitely get on it, twitch.tv/Anaheim Calling SBN. And make sure to check out AnaheimCalling.com for all your Ducks content needs. And we did cover the Gulls today. I would definitely urge you to check out DefendTheNest.com. Our good buddy John's website does a great job of covering the San Diego Gulls as they pursue their run here. Don't worry, we're going to get back into the swing slowly here, do more of these.
Yep.
And we will be doing a draft preview pod as well.
Yep, and go follow his Twitter account where he posts kind of a lot of different stuff as the game's going on at Defend the Nest SD.
Absolutely. And then, of course, check us out on Twitter. Jake is on Twitter at ReindeerGames91. I'm on Twitter at Felix_Sicard. And then, of course, at Anaheim Calling. Make sure to check out the Patreon page. $5 a month. You get some fun bonus content where we get to go a lot more in depth about the rest of the league. It's kind of become our outlet to talk about the rest of the NHL and different topics. And
yeah,
I think if you're a hockey fan or a Ducks fan, whatever the case may be, it's absolutely worth a $5 a month.
And on top of that, you also get access to the Discord chat, which is a really good time. People will chat about different games in there, chat about various random topics, different things. I know CJ was in there also recently. CJ is going to be writing a lot of different stuff for the website, and so he was asking if anyone had any specific ideas that they wanted written about on top of just for the Patreon pods. So you get access to kind of all of our writers in a very kind of private chat form. So you get that with your Patreon membership, whether it is only at the $1 tier, which kind of just gets you access to that, or the $5 tier that gets you the bonus episodes.
And with all that being said, thanks a lot for listening tonight, guys, and we will catch you at the next pod.
Bye!